All right, today we're going to talk about how to divide integers. And this should not be a very long video, and this should be very easy. To be honest with you, I usually teach multiplying and divide integers at the same time. But the last video was going long, so I decided to make it in two different ones. Now you say, how can you teach multiplying and dividing integers at the same time? And basically, it's because the rules are exactly the same. And you say, so you always multiply? No. To divide integers, you always divide. And again, the hardest thing about dividing integers is dividing correctly. All right? So you have to be very careful to make sure you divide right. But again, the only thing that can change if you always divide is the sign of your answer. Now, years ago, about 20 years ago, and before that when I taught, for about the first 20 years that I taught, I always taught dividing integers by looking at patterns, just like I did for multiplying. Instead of a times table, I did a divided by table. And if you do a divided by table, you'll see that you can find the rules for dividing just like you found the rules for multiplying. And you also see that the rules for dividing are the same as the rules for multiplying. And about 20 years ago, it kind of hit me like, wow, duh, why do I even have to say that? Because the truth is, isn't it true we learned with fractions you can change division to multiplication? All right, so whatever rules you have for division, integer-wise, have to be the same as the rules for multiplication. Because when you change from division to multiplication, you change the number you're dividing by to its reciprocal. And if you want the reciprocal of a negative number, it's still going to be a negative number. So when you change a number reciprocal, you don't change the signs. Well, if you follow what I'm saying, great. And if you don't worry about it. All you really need to know is this. A positive divided by a positive equals a positive. And a negative divided by a negative equals a positive. And a positive divided by a negative equals a negative. And finally, a negative divided by a positive equals a negative. And again, you can boil the four rules down to the same two as we had for multiplication. And that is same signs, answer positive, and then different signs, answer negative. And again, the most difficult thing about dividing integers is dividing correctly. And the other problem that people have with dividing integers is they mix up the rule for division with the rule for addition. You're not adding, okay, so a negative plus a negative is a negative, but a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So again, if you looked at an example, something like, say, 396, a positive 396 divided by a negative 9, a positive divided by a negative, same signs or different signs? I have different signs, so my answer is negative. And then if you divide 9 into 396, it goes 4 times, remainder 3, and then it goes 4 more times, remainder 0. So positive 396 divided by a negative 9 is a negative 44. By the way, one thing to worry about is when you start dividing, you might forget about the sign. So you might know that a positive divided by a negative is a negative, but after you finish dividing, you might just say, okay, I'm finished, and put 44. And remember, if you put a number with no sign, that means it's positive, which means this would be wrong. So you have to put the negative sign. One kid I taught a long time ago. I don't even remember who he was anymore, I'm sorry to say. But he said, Mr. Do, what I always do is when I figure out what the sign is, I put it right next to the answer so I don't forget about it. And then after doing my work and put my answer up there, I'll have it. That sounds good to me, sounds like a good idea, except don't leave your answer here because that's a positive 44 and you want it to be a negative 44. By the way, you might say, what happens if I divide and I have a remainder? Like if I said I had a negative 342 divided by a positive 7. And again, different signs, my answer is negative, you can put it there. When you divide 7 into 342, it goes 4 times. 4 times 7 is 28, remainder 6. 7 into 62 goes 8 times. 8 times 7 is 56, remainder 6. And you have 48 and 6 sevenths. And so it's a negative 48 and 6 sevenths. And you might say, well, Mr. Do, I can't have a negative fraction. And I say, why not? If you can have 1/2 in front of the decimal, in front of 0, why can't you have 1/2 behind 0? So there's no rule that says you can't have a negative fraction. So if you have a remainder, I recommend you write them as a fraction. By the way, I picked some very easy 1-digit division, but you have to know that you have to be able to do this with 1, 2, or even 3-digit divisors, okay? And again, division is the same as it always was. The only thing you have to add to it is have the right sign. So again, I told you this would be a short video, and it is, and it's an easy thing to do. If you knew how to multiply integers, you'll be able to divide integers. And again, your homework tonight will be IXL on division. And I believe you'll have 4 IXL new assignments that you'll have to get caught up on. So again, work on them. Get 80%, 90%, 100% mastery. You should always strive for 100%. So good luck.